Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Black Ops Cold War in Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the DMR 14 tactical rifle. You're going to get to see a lot of gameplay of this weapon today in a lot of different configurations and modes, but one thing is going to be consistent across all of them, and that's the fact that I'm using akimbo magnums with lasers and suppressors as a secondary weapon. I actually get some good gameplay with these and go on some decent streaks, and they save my bacon a little bit. However, I don't want you guys to think that that is a good secondary weapon. I was experimenting with them to see if they were a decent shotgun or regular pistol replacement, and they're not. I got some good gameplay with them in this particular in-depth, either probably really by sheer luck since they're hip fire, and I just don't want you all to think that that's a good strategy when it's really not. Stick with the basic weapons on that, but today we're going to be talking about the DMR 14. The DMR 14 isn't a bad gun per se, it just may not be good for most of the modes in Black Ops Cold War. I think it may see a lot more use in Verdansk or perhaps Rebirth Island when the Warzone update comes out because it performs really well in Dirty Bomb. It deals a lot of damage against armored targets, it's got great range, and it really excels in those modes. It shreds people in those modes, so I'm looking forward to using it there in the future. Also, by the time you're watching this, I'm probably streaming Cyberpunk 2077 on Twitch right now. The embargo for the game breaks a couple hours after this in-depth is out, and I'm going to be streaming it for most of the night. I know that this is a Call of Duty channel and even a Call of Duty in-depth, but this is a big hype moment for me. It's something I'm really excited about, so I hope to see some of you there. But let's move back to the DMR 14. The DMR 14 bullet velocity is 700 meters per second, which is very fast. It's not quite as fast as the M16 or AUG, but it's going to be indistinguishably different. Like, it's going to be very, very small and among the fastest bullet velocities in the game. Because of that, the velocity boosting barrels really aren't needed in base multiplayer. You might need them in Warzone or Dirty Bomb if you're doing some very extreme range shooting with the weapon in those modes, but even in those modes, you may not need the velocity boosting barrels. It might just be good to go by itself. When it comes to damage, the DMR 14 is very unique in that it kills in 3 shots always. It's always a 3-shot kill as long as you're not getting headshots, and it has a damage profile of 58 up close and drops a meager 8 points down to 50 at long ranges. So even at extreme ranges, 3 hits should kill any target unless they're either behind cover or they have some kind of armor. Headshots, however, will grant 1 less shot to kill at close ranges. It's got a 1.4x multiplier, just like everything else in the game. Now, long-range headshots won't help you, but close-range headshots can get you a 2-shot kill with this weapon and significantly shorten your time to kill. However, I kind of struggled with the iron sights, and I don't really think it's a very good close-quarters combat weapon for a lot of reasons, so you're not going to see me go for headshots a whole lot in this video. When it comes to the range on all of this, it has a maximum damage range of 51 meters, which is extremely long range in Black Ops Cold War. That's longer than almost all of the engagements that you're going to be having on base multiplayer maps, so I wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of range drop. So I guess you could probably get that 2-shot kill headshot at most of the ranges that you're going to be fighting people. So if nothing else, because I said it wasn't a good gun earlier, it does have one good thing about it. The DMR 14 has an extremely consistent time to kill and shots to kill across all ranges. It's always going to be a 3-shot to kill, it's always going to have the same time to kill, and that's going to be at pretty much every range and every scenario. The DMR 14 has a rate of fire of 400 rounds per minute. Now this is single fire, it's not fully automatic, so your trigger finger will determine how close to this you get, and that is a little bit faster than the Type 63. The Type 63 is about 360 rounds per minute, so of the two, this one definitely shoots faster. There are a couple of different barrels that can increase your rate of fire somewhere between 9, 15, and I think 25% depending on the barrel, but for this particular weapon, I didn't find them to be very helpful. Because of its handling stats, which we'll get into in a little bit, the DMR 14 is truly a long-range weapon, and I don't really need to be up in people's faces spamming playing these little millisecond and frame games and time to kill. And if I allow myself to have the faster fire rate barrels at long range, what I'm more likely to do is spam, slightly increase my recoil because I'm shooting slightly faster, waste my ammo, and make the gun worse. So I did not find them very useful. So for some of you that are going to be absolutely mad lads and try and rush and run and gun with this weapon, inevitably, yeah, they'll probably help you there. I didn't use them very much. At the end of all of this, the DMR 14 will kill in 300 milliseconds at all ranges, which is kind of impressive. Again, that consistency, and that's faster than most weapons in Black Ops Cold War. It's not the fastest, but I would say it's probably top 5, top 6. It's not a slow killing weapon at all, and it's one that you should respect, but I do want to let you know that this is a theoretical time to kill. That's only in theory. In practice, your time to kill will be a lot slower if you miss a single shot, or if your enemy has armor, or if they're behind cover, or if they've stemmed. There's just a lot of things that can increase your theoretical time to kill and make your practical time to kill a lot slower than what you probably want it to be. When it comes to handling stats, the DMR-14 will aim down sights in 325 milliseconds, and it has a sprint out time of 266 milliseconds. This isn't very different than most of the tactical rifles. Most of the tactical rifles are between 300 and 350 milliseconds for ADS time, and the sprint out time is a little bit faster than average for tactical rifles, mostly because the AUG is very slow. So technically this does have better aim down sights and sprint out time handling statistics than the AUG, but the AUG just has a way faster time to kill, so it's going to delete you up close. The weapon has a fairly normal reload time at 2.5 seconds, which is a little bit unusual since most of the weapons in this class reload a little bit slower than that, but it's not going to feel exceptionally fast or really great. Like the other tactical rifles, it has a wider than average hip fire at 8.5 milliradians. The average for assault rifles, which I think is the most comparable weapon class, is 7.5 milliradians. The recoil on this weapon is low to moderate with no attachments, but it's very low when kitted properly. And I know that I haven't been doing a lot of recoil tests on in-depth this year, but I feel that it's not as necessary given the very basic fact that almost everybody kits their weapons to be laser beams. So its base recoil is going to be a little bit higher than the Type 63. It kicks a little bit more awkwardly and isn't as easy to control, but you don't need many attachments to tighten this up and make it extremely accurate up close or at long range. It's very easy to do. Unfortunately, one of the major weaknesses of this weapon is that recoil still isn't as low as most of the full auto assault rifles when they're kitted for recoil reduction. A lot of the assault rifles in this game, like the XM4, the AK, the QBZ, when you kit them for long-range combat and recoil reduction, they are actual true laser beams. They sometimes even have negative recoil in the case of the AK, and they are very, very easy to use. They are very fully automatic, and I think that they just outperform the DMR-14 even in that long-range role. So you're sitting there and you've got yours kitted for low recoil, and it's pretty low, but it'll kick a little, you'll flinch a little, but you're fighting a guy with an AK that's just blasting you full auto with actually zero recoil. He's gonna win that gunfight unless you just have perfect aim, and that's truly the biggest weakness of this weapon, is that assault rifles are just a lot easier to use, and they do the same job that the DMR-14 is supposed to do at the same ranges, just easier. And speaking of easy, the DMR-14 is probably easier to use on PC than console, and that's kind of rare for this game. The console aim assist is a little bit more like the World War II aim assist. It's very strong, and depending on what you're trying to do with your aim, sometimes it fights you. It's one of the reasons I'm doing PC instead of console this year. And when it comes to weapons like burst fire weapons and sometimes some machine guns, it can make your game a little bit easier because if you snap onto them really well, the very strong auto aim will kind of automatically track them across a burst. However, for the DMR-14, the sticky aim fights me more than I would like for it to. It doesn't track quite as well, and it doesn't allow me the fluidity of movement to really dink people in the head. So I think that the DMR-14 is easier to use on PC than console because without auto aim you can just kind of click heads. If you were really going to use this on console, you might actually want to consider turning the auto aim off or changing one of your curve settings. In my opinion, the iron sights are a bit small, but they work well enough for the small maps. I don't really have a big problem with them on the small maps. However, for this weapon, as you've seen from all the gameplay, I greatly prefer long-range scopes. Just being able to hit people at long range with precision is absolutely the way to go. And when it comes to how I evaluate this weapon, how I rate it, what I think about it, I've got some varying opinions to go through. I do think that the DMR-14 is a very consistent weapon with great range and low recoil. Not the lowest, but low enough to be good by most measures of a weapon in a Call of Duty game. However, I also think that it takes a lot of skill to use. It's very punishing if you miss shots, and it will probably lose out to fully automatic assault rifles that have been kitted for accuracy, and also probably to sniper rifles since they don't really have any flinch. Because of that, I cannot recommend the DMR-14 for multiplayer, but I will admit that you can destroy people in Dirty Bomb and Warzone. The accuracy, the very high bullet velocity, the range, and the damage per shot are good enough to where you can really shred through armor faster than most of the other weapons in Dirty Bomb. I think LMGs do a great job at this as well. So I'm assuming that when Warzone comes out, we may see this weapon kind of have a nice like resurgence, a comeback, and be popular like the FAL was for Modern Warfare 2019. That's kind of not set in stone. We don't know yet because it's not out, but we will see. And another important thing, so almost a PSA, is that you won't be able to use the DMR 14 if you are playing in high skill lobbies. If you're going in with 4 and 5 or 6 stacks, if your skill-based matchmaking is high, if your friends are all high skill, or if you're just a great solo player and you get those high skill enemy lobbies, they're probably not going to let you run a train on them with the DMR 14. The weapons that they're going to be using are going to be those low recoil assault rifles or rushing SMGs that are either going to have far better handling stats or less recoil than you, and they're just not going to let you kill them. You're going to lose most of those engagements. So if you're a very high skill player, I'd recommend avoiding this gun. And as an end to this PSA, I included a clip of myself at the end of the night of playing in a very high skill lobby where all 6 players were high skill, and this is what it did to me. So yeah, this is me after playing with the DMR 14 all night in fairly high skill lobbies. And I usually look a little bit less crazy than this, but it was exactly this frustrating. It did this to my hair. The DMR 14 is not a gun that you can use if you're above average skill. You'll just get destroyed by everybody else using assault rifles that are much better. Yeah, definitely not looking my best there. You can definitely see the stress levels in my hair itself. It was that bad in high skill lobbies, so be very careful about that. But I am going to give you my best class, my best recommended class, and that's this one right here. It looks a little bit goofy, but I think it performs well. We're going to be using the SUSAT multi-zoom again. Of all of the long-range optics, this one is probably my favorite. It just has a very clean, clear sight, and I can do 2x or 4x, though the Vision Tac 2x, and I will admit that the Royal and Cross 4x are also pretty good options. I like to use the SOCOM Eliminator attachment for the muzzle because it has a good vertical recoil reduction and helps the muzzle flash concealment a little bit. I do get a little bit of horizontal recoil control penalty and shooting move speed. For the barrel, I'm going to do something that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I'm going to go with a 20.8 inch match grade barrel that gives me 100% effective damage range. Now, on a weapon like this, you would probably think, why? Because it's always a 3-shot kill. And the answer is because this will extend my 2-shot headshot range out almost infinitely. It'll give me a 100 meter 2-shot headshot range. And that can sometimes be very, very helpful when I'm fighting snipers that peek over the dunes and stuff like that. If I'm really trying to pick people that are also trying to pick me, I'm only going to get 1 or 2 shots in, so it's very nice to have the opportunity to 2-shot drop them with headshots. I didn't do it very effectively, but it is nice to have that option on the table, and most of the other barrels don't do anything good for the gun that I like, perhaps increase the rate of fire a little bit, which in my opinion makes it a little bit worse. I use the Ember sighting point body attachment just so that I can see the dots through the bushes and the smoke and at long ranges. I'm starting to fall in love with this one for tactical rifles. I know I took a little bit of horizontal recoil control loss earlier, but we're going to make up with it with the Field Agent grip. The Field Agent 4 grip is one that I've been using a lot just because it tremendously tightens up that horizontal recoil control. Works very well for me. Again, jungle style mags, a lot like the other DMRs. It just has no downsides, just very fast reloads. And we're going to be running the Airborne Elastic Wrap, which gives me less flinch, faster ADS, and I can kind of get in and out of various stances, or head glitches, you could say, with the weapon without having to un-ADS, which is very, very nice. Finally, I use the SAS Combat Stock. It gives me a little bit extra shooting move speed and aim movement walking speed with a hipfire penalty. I don't hipfire with the weapon anyway, and a lot of the other attachments that I took kind of messed up my shooting move speed and my aim walking speed, so it's nice to have something to improve those. And this is ultimately a long range class. This is a class where you want to sit back, counter snipe, pick people off. You probably don't want to rush with too much, and it's not the best for multiplayer because, well, the weapon itself isn't the best, but it does wonders in Dirty Bomb and probably will work well in Warzone. Guys, that is all for this episode of In Depth. I hope that you have enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.